The passage also brings up a lot of interesting topics. Obviously, the first and foremost, which you put in your newsletter, is the acknowledgement of utopian communities and how this is all interwoven with the utopian communities. And that's been a theme throughout the series. But I was very interested to see that you started this not knowing about Robert Owen, because I was kind of like, wait, what? Because I actually had thought the opposite. I had thought, oh, she's read about him. And then all of a sudden, this note comes in your newsletter, and I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Which is amazing because I knew it from the colony that he set up in Indiana. Having
Yeah.
to go to college out there, I'd heard of this experiment or failed experiment. And I think one of the things that, and again, everybody should go get your newsletters, go look on the website, go read the articles. You've got great blog posts on that they can dig into. Who was this nobleman? And there were multiple who thought they could create these utopian communities. And more importantly, why did they fail? And the big magic here is money. And one of the things that I liked about this book is it very much addressed the monetary challenges of maintaining these kinds of communities. They demanded enormous amounts of income to be able to support families, etc. But the businesses weren't necessarily driving that. So one of the things that's being acknowledged here is that at a certain point, Robert has to weigh out his interests and what he's going to do. And Martin, one of the things he struggles with, I think the most, I'm thinking of Robert Owen, that's interesting to me is he's a progressive, but he isn't. And there's this acknowledgement throughout the book that he is noble and he knows he's noble. And he thinks of that even when he's looking at, Martha versus Lolly. He notes that Lolly is but she was the right class. There's one line that I highlighted where he literally just sort of said, she was the same class as me. This woman is not. His brain is going there. And he's consistent. Mr. Mulvey is a great example of how he can't quite get past the employer-employee relationship, even though he actually is well past it. He can't acknowledge it. He's also possibly one of the most really burdened with his own guilt and lack of self-worth. I mean, it's mea culpa, mea maxima culpa a lot of times. Why were those characteristics important for you to bring out at Martin at this age versus what you see when he's younger?
One of the key propulsion elements of this book is the book that happened before it, The Miss Without a Mister.
Right.
His youngest daughter, Caroline, has been in love with Eddie Chow her whole life. They're basically the same age. Eddie Chow is the son of the couple that kind of inspired Northfield Hall. And they grew up together. Caroline always assumed, because she was raised to believe in this utopian vision, she assumed that class boundaries had been eradicated and she was going to marry Eddie and they were going to live happily ever after at Northfield Hall. And then in her book, her father lays down the law and says, no, you can't marry him. He's not of our
Right.
class. You are not going to be able to have a happily ever after. And a lot of stuff happens. A whole book happens. But Martin is kind of forced to realize that his children see the world differently than he does. And so he is not healed from that wound and is still trying to process everything that happened with Caroline throughout this book. So I think that's why he is feeling that he is always doing the wrong thing and that everything is always his fault so completely in this book. I also think something that I didn't consciously write, but that comes out for me every time I reread it is Martha is such a partner to him. She just kind of sees his burden and kind of lifts it. And sometimes she's able to say, this is not your burden, leave it alone. And sometimes she's able to say, okay, well, what are we going to do about this? And I think that's something that Martin had in Lolly and has had with Malvi to a certain degree. But he's losing Malvi, his steward and best friend, who is, I think, hopefully it's not a surprise he's an old man and he's facing the end of his life. So Martin has lost these partners who would kind of call him on his overthinking and his anxiety and his making it about himself. And the other part of it is I kind of wanted to explore the narcissism involved in being a leader in having a vision, in doing something. Like there's a certain element of if you are going to say, I am turning my estate into this utopian, world, and whether you want people to pay attention to you or not, and you're doing it, like there's some narcissism in there. And then, he's born into the Baron role, so there's definitely narcissism baked into that. And I
But it's also baked into the care and nurturing. One thing I wrote down is Preston and guilt, taking on all the responsibilities. You think back to like the ancient times when you had your serfs and you cared for them. The whole noble class was raised to think that we are supposed to be the benefactors. And for some people, they weren't. They were totally taking advantage of it. But that's not who Martin is. Martin is, I'm supposed to take care of everybody. And
right.
that's part of his breakdown is he has to deal with the fact that, as in the previous book, has caused him an enormous amount of guilt. The other thing I love, Caroline has the same problem. She is not over it. And it was funny because I was like, I'm thinking about, wait a minute. And I had to go back and look at her book and realize, oh, right, the epilogue is like 2 decades ahead.
Hmm.
Right. And it's like, of course, the space is left there for this incredible bitterness she still feels. She might have her HEA with Eddie, but there's a lot going on around her that's not resolved. And it's right there in this book. And that to me was one of the things I really appreciated, was seeing this thread continue through of that guilt and of that pain.